Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of you and peace out to the rest of you. Look, hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Shout out to Caesar Cannon again. I listened to the last one, man. And when I listened to that, I got some goosebumps because in our faith, there's a warning for us. And this warning tells us that number one, there will be somebody that comes to God on Judgment Day and comes before the throne after everybody's been resurrected. And he will have died like a martyr in the cause of God. And he will say this to his Lord. And the judge of judges is going to answer back, you did actually sacrifice your life in my cause, but you did it so that people would say that you were brave and lion-hearted. Well, you were dead by that point, but people did say this about you. So you got the reward you were looking for. You don't have one with me, but you got the reward for them you were looking for. And the angels will grab him, pick him up, and throw him face first into hell. And so when the prophet told people about this warning, it became a reason that many people who were going to perform heroic deeds during the military conquest decided they would cover their heads up so that, or wrap their faces up so that it was clear at this point. They could never doubt for a second that they were doing this for people's approval. So one man, or during a stalemate, I think it was during a siege or trench war, a siege, stepped forward and he said, listen, catapult me over the gate. And they said, they're definitely going to kill you if you get in the gate. And he said, they may do so, but I have time. I can fight enough to where I can open the gate from the inside before they kill me. And they asked him, who are you? Because he had his face covered up. And he said, I covered my face up so that you would not know. I'm doing this for God, not for you. Doing this so that your rulership will be supreme over the rulers of those that worship idols. So that they won't be the ones who have the upper authority in the land. So if I'm not mistaken, he survived. Or maybe it was another situation in which someone covered his face, volunteered for something, and then survived. But when the commander said, look, I want that man to come and tell me who he is, the man came into the commander's office later on with his face wrapped up again. He said, I'm the one that did it. Thank you, sir. And he left. He still wouldn't show who he was because he was not doing it for the people's approval and for them to call him a hero. This was decades or centuries after the life of our prophet. Our prophet, peace and prayers be to him, also told us of two others. One is the person that recites the Quran a lot. If he does it for the wrong reasons, he will show up on Judgment Day and the Lord would tell him, you did it so that people would marvel at you reciting the Quran. You didn't do it for me. You got the reward. They marveled at you. Well, there's no reward for me, so the angels will grab that man and throw him head first into hell too. So the other person is the one that gave generously in charity. And it would be the same thing if he did it so that people would say, yo, look at him. That man is generous. He funds a lot of stuff. Look what he's doing for the people. If that's his reason for doing it, he will be grabbed up. On a day of judgment, he will be told the same thing. You did it for the people's praise. And you got it. And he will be thrown head first into hell. Not because what he did was wrong, but because his reason was wrong. If you do something positive so that God will reward you, then you're doing it for the reward. So many people said, well, in order to make sure that I am doing this for the right reason, I got to do it in a way nobody knows. And that was why some of these guys during the military campaigns were willing to martyr themselves if they could keep their identities a secret. Now, granted, if they're dead, they could be disrobed. But then again, at that point, it's already a done deal. But when one of them survived, he still would not identify himself. Next was the one that gives generously. He gave generously. That was a good thing to do, but he did it for the wrong reasons. The same with the one that would recite the Quran. So when I did this and I decided I was going to keep myself anonymous, I didn't only do it to protect myself. Look where I live. I started off doing this, cussing out Muslims that were racist, that lived in this area. That's how I started off this channel. I didn't mind them picking fights with me. So what? That's when I showed my face. When I started to transition into this, then I decided, well, you know what? Because you see, my people live back in the States. So if something was going to happen to me here, it was going to happen to me here. So there were some videos I recorded and I didn't show my face because I used a still image for the sake of data. There was somewhere I recorded, put my face up. I took them down. When I transitioned into this, I took them down. Why did I do it? When I realized that something could happen to my people back stateside, since my messages were in English anyway. But over here, I would have been a hero. I would have been considered famous when I switched to another topic. They wouldn't have even had to know what I was talking about. You're on YouTube, you see. So I actually had to be anonymous for the benefit of other people and the lack of benefit to myself. So that's why I've been saying, I hope this benefits you. There's no way this is going to come back to me in this life. No way that I'm going to get a reward for it right now in this life. This way, when I stand in front of the Lord, there's no question about me doing this for the approval of other people. To help them, sure, but not the approval. And even then, to help other people, the benefit is so that I would have a reward with God. Because he's not going to say, black minds step up in front of all the other people on Judgment Day. He's going to call me by my name and my mother's name. Government name, son of your mother's government name. That's what he's going to call me. That's how he's going to refer to me. And that's when it's my turn. So I got to do what I got to do now to make sure that I've got the best situation possible on that day. And Mr. Cannon is right. There's going to come a division between the sincere and the insincere. And his message was a reminder to me, don't become insincere about this. So I ain't going to lie. I mean, in all honesty, I wouldn't mind showing myself to him, to Kay, who also lives in the New Orleans area. I wouldn't mind that. But since actually a lot of people don't disagree, they at least know that I mean well. If I put my face out, at least, then my face would be famous. I'm not looking for that. I don't want that. The message is more important than the messenger. This is how it is, that we have to listen to each other, ladies in the Goldensphere and men in the Goldensphere, those who are aware of it. When we start to talking, both of us have to listen to each other to hear the message and to be willing to give the benefit of the doubt. So when you ladies say you can be dealing with this, that, and the other, I'm willing to listen. Now, you have men in the manosphere who don't know about the Goldensphere. They're just not finding out from me. So they may not know that you have shown that you're willing to be individuals, because you've already said to the gynocracy and the sisterhood, we're not going to join you in bashing MLS men. We're not going to carry on your dysfunction, and we're not going to tolerate your hypocrisy. So they're just now learning this, mostly from me, I think, and Kidigakure Jones, if he talks about it. I'm not really sure. Understand, ladies, the reason I did this was because I saw what many of you said. You're not willing to join in the bashing of MLS men. I also saw where some of you said, we appreciate you. And on July 2nd, 2021, Mr. Cannon, shout out to him again, put out a message saying to the MLS men, the MLS women are reaching out to you. But I beg to differ about one thing. I knew what he was getting at. Talking about the Goldensphere women. They are. You are. That's true. But golden women in general, MLS women in general, no, not really. No. I mean, because most people outside, when you walk out, when you just walk around out there, a lot of people don't know. There are many men that don't know about the manosphere, even just the manosphere, but they know about red pill awareness. Well, there were after Kevin Samuels, I think a lot of men knew about the manosphere, even though he didn't call himself that. But, Goldensphere, no, a lot of people don't know. A lot of MLS people walking around don't know. So Golden and Goldensphere people are two different things. There's not even always overlap. But he was right that Goldensphere women were reaching out to MLS men. That is true. And that was why I said, okay, all right. Now, let me do my part to help. Let me listen first, see what they're talking about. Because if this is just about separatism, well, of course, what's the reason? But what I saw was that this was about fairness and justice. You don't want to misrepresent your relatives that don't want you representing them. You don't want them representing you if they don't want you representing them. You don't hate them, but you're tired of being blamed for things you didn't do. You are tired of being negatively stereotyped in ways you don't deserve, and you're not willing to do these things to them either. Those who have done these things to them usually are unambiguous themselves. That's fairness. That's justice. That's what you're looking for. I'm for that. Straight. Word. There we go. I'm with that. And so then I decided that when Exoticals United was going to ask us men to come up and describe what we've been through, number one, not enough men went up. That's the first thing. But number two, ladies, a lot of you thought that we were attacking you. No, we, meaning Carl and Kitagakure and Mr. Cannon, and I know that the Golden Sphere is different from the rest of the West, as far as women are concerned. So what I'm going to address to you now for you to correct is not the malice. It is not the war per se. It is not the misandry, the conscious misandry. Because you've already decided you're not going to carry those torches. What I'm going to talk to you about right now, and I'm doing this from a position of compassion, is about the programming of which you're not aware and conscious, but you still got because you did in fact grow up in the West as Western women, and that comes with a programming. Now, we men already had to understand, coming up in the nidjocracy, the gynocracy, and the matriarchy, there were certain things that came with that program, and there are certain pathologies. But we've also had to understand these pathologies, and we've had to realize we got to get rid of them. We realize this, whether a MLS man or an unmixed man goes into the manosphere first, or if he goes into the golden sphere, he's going to have to realize this. But the reason why most men in the golden sphere, or who are aware of it, know that we've already known we've had to remove certain pathologies, and we admit they exist, and we've worked to remove them, is because of the manosphere. I'm not blaming you for that. It's just the manosphere has been around longer. That's all. But I understand that when I tell you this, even some of you now are going to say, I don't want to hear it. All I'm about to tell you is, you will have some psychological work to do on yourselves to de-westernize. From the subconscious programming that has been put into you to at least give you the impression that men are still not as important as we really are. A lot of you are aware, and you said, okay, you know what? Bossy may be golden sphere, but we can't take her points into the golden sphere if we actually want a community. Now you're aware of this. And I'm not even saying this out of hatred for her. I'll give her credit for at least being honest. We're not going to agree, but at least she's honest. But because of her honesty, a lot of you have said, okay, you know what? We can't do this. Okay, but keep this in mind, ladies. You still have snakes in the grass amongst you. A few. Some of them, and don't take my word for who they are, but some of them would even say, no, Bossy's a bad look for us. They would agree with you in saying that. She is, yeah. Bad look for you, yeah. You want a community, she's going to run men off, that's true. She'll just be honest about it when she's doing it. But you have some snakes in the grass amongst you who would say this and then turn around and then still say one-sided things to men in general, and they mean it. And they're talking to MLS men who are aware of the golden sphere, saying these things, and they will run us off as well. Not because we're weak, but because they're one-sided. They don't feel a guck about men. They think that the way God made us is problematic and toxic. No. It's not true. A libido's not toxic. Unchastity is toxic for any gender, but a libido is not toxic for either one. That's what it comes down to. You've been trained, and some of these ladies, whether consciously or subconsciously, still have that training, but they're speaking it out. And the way they do it is that whenever a man gives observation about the Western woman in general, not even talking about the Goldensphere, it's too small, but about Western women in general, well, that's not even hateful, they get triggered. That's why I said the Western women. I wasn't talking about Goldensphere women. I said Western women in general are individuals until it comes time to pick men. Then they pick the same few men based on the same few things. Now, data has shown this. But when I said it, some got triggered. Now, just because you may be individuals, and I believe it because y'all came together and said, we're not really willing to make height that big of a priority. Just taller than me. A lot of you said the same thing. I don't have a reason to doubt you yet. And if no reason ever shows up, then I won't doubt it. Because by going into a golden sphere and saying, we're not going to join the gynocracy and bashing MLS men and saying you're effeminate, that's individualism. You're actually going against the grain. You're going against the current. So it shows me that you can't do it. So therefore you can think as individuals. I was talking about in general because I was answering Exoticals United question, as was Carl Williams, about what we had been through outside. Remember, outside, outdoors in the United States, ain't no golden sphere. It's online, period. When we walking around and we ain't on our phones, ain't no golden sphere. Ain't no golden sphere places to shop, eat dinner, lunch, none of that stuff. You see where I'm going with this? There you go. That's it. A lot of you got triggered because we were talking about women from whom you had already defected. But it is true. What I'm about to tell you now is still true. You're going to have to retrain and reprogram yourself. And this is what I meant when I put up this upload about if you don't distinguish yourselves from other Western women, you will drive your men off. Because the Western Wyatt woman, the Western sister from whom you defected, both drive their men off. The manosphere, it really is just the men who the gynocracy and the matriarchy and the hyenocracy and the hypocrisy of the nijocracy drove away. That's it. It was unsustainable. Sexually and non-sexually was unsustainable, so they drove us the F off. And that's what the manosphere is. Now, the conclusions do vary, that's true, but the facts, they form the trunk of the tree if you want to compare the manosphere to a tree. The facts are the same, and Kitagakure Jones nicely explained, oh no, there are stats to back up why there's a manosphere. And he knew the stats better than I did. He didn't blame you in the golden sphere for this, and a lot of you got upset. Caesar knew the manosphere existed, but he did not know exactly what it was based on because, again, where he's from, he is within the ambiguity threshold. He's not beyond it. So there was a treatment he was not going to see, and that's good. He shouldn't have to. Because the kind of treatment I saw, I'm not talking about just not being chosen. I'm talking about being mistreated. It's not something I should have had to see. Other men I knew should not have had to go through, and he should not have to go through it. And women should not have had to go through this, especially when they were young and didn't do anything. But people did. Men really are individuals when it comes to women and other things in life. Unfortunately, the most toxic ninjas are the loudest, and it's usually because they get the most encouragement. But that's the case. However, we are still individuals. I would say this. When it comes to ladies, I've said ladies are individuals. But when it comes to the men, they select the same way. They're trained to. I wasn't saying it's like y'all are stupid. I'm just saying you were trained to. And when I say y'all, yes, I'm talking about Western women in general. And I'm also saying that y'all in the golden sphere, but I didn't get a chance to get this far because I didn't want to talk too much. But y'all in the golden sphere, and Carl knew I was talking about this. Anybody would have known. Y'all in the golden sphere either have shown that you think individually by joining it, or you have a chance to do so. You can go either way. This could go either way even right now. I got men in my manosphere audience who have said, look, man, one told me I'm going to give him a pass. He didn't say he was going to go against you. He said he's going to give you a pass. He doesn't trust you. Why would he say that? He's not seen any exceptions. One, he's not aware of it, but he did say, we just learned about this from you. He did say that. And what I said to him is, I want to be fair. If they pass the fair test, then There's no need to give them a pass. If they fail, then we give them a pass. But if they pass it, then we're not the moral failures because we still gave them a fair chance. That's when I said, and he came back and said, yeah, you know what? That makes sense. Keep rocking with them. That's the fair thing to do. They deserve a chance to show what they're about. Now, I don't have permission to use his name, but the last name he chose on the screen is Johnson. In the end, he came back and said, you know what? Yeah, man, let's be fair. LOM, another member, shout out to him. He may have a different view. He doesn't really know about the Goldensphere much. He found out about it, I think maybe from me, but the point, or maybe from someone else, but the point is, even he does not blame me for trying to be fair. He never came on and attacked me for that. But understand, this is what will determine what's going to happen later on. And there's a reason I'm talking about the golden sphere to the manosphere and vice versa. Because it's a win-win for both of you. You got the same common enemy. Both of you disagree with the dysfunction of the matriarchy, gynocracy, hypocrisy, nidjocracy, hyenocracy. Both of you disagree with that. You want to be intellectually honest? Here's how it goes. Ladies, in the golden sphere, most of you are not going to turn down good men because they're unmixed or abundantly melanated. We already know that. If they believe in being responsible and they're your type, you'll take them. And you're not wrong for that. Despite saying no, you know what? Despite some of you saying no, we want golden men, and others of you that say, well, you know, we want good men. In the end, we want good men. And that's fine. And most black men in the West, period, the good and the bad, aren't outside of the country yet, aren't outside of the U.S. or whatever their Western nations are yet. It's growing, but they're not out yet. And not all of them are going to overnight get out. This may be a way. You may be an answer in the West. It's possible if you're staying in the West. You don't have to. I don't really care where y'all decide to settle, but if you decide to stay in the West, you may very well be someone with whom they can actually start and build their legacy without leaving the West. That's expensive. You may be worth that expense. You have a chance to be, at least. A lot of them are going to be suspicious at first, but time can show. However, for your own good, as well as for you all's mutual good, ladies in the golden sphere, understand, you will have to be different and better than Western women. And you might think, well, what's wrong with Western women? I resent that. No. Close your mouth. Don't resent it. You have a choice. We're not blaming you for being Western geographically and by birth. That's not anyone's fault. But understand that there are toxicities that come with most Western women, even the ones that don't outright hate men. And they think it's funny and they think it's cute. Bossy Empress has just been open and honest about it. But on the subconscious level, a lot of Western women have the same thoughts. I take, he gives. I'm better than him because he likes me more. I don't like most men the way he likes me. Therefore, I must be better. Many of them do think like cats. You must separate yourself from that mindset. It's going to take work, and you're going to need help from the men. It's not going to be because, well, we men are grooming you to be just completely easy for us to take advantage of. No, because most men don't respect men who take advantage of women like that. You know, she doesn't know the game, and you out here just using up her money and her resources. No, most of us wouldn't respect that. Especially those of us that spend any time in the manosphere, and that's the main way by which men find out about the golden sphere in the first place. Keep that in mind. I'm not sitting up and telling men to go from the manosphere to the golden sphere all militant and mean and stuff. All I'm saying is just don't let anybody take advantage. That's all. Because I don't have to tell them don't take advantage of you. Now, as the numbers increase, I might have to say that, but right now the trickle is too small. I don't really have to say that. They already know. They know you're not going to let them take advantage of you. But who's going to tell you that you need to de-Westernize in certain ways and how to do so, or walk you through that process? It's going to have to be us. Not because we're perfect, but because we've already had to go through certain processes like this. We've had to deprogram and reprogram as well. Of course, we've had to do it. Most of us, especially in my age group, we grew up thinking that the Disney movies were correct. Be the good guy, and just be the good guy, and you're gonna wind up not only the hero in the end, but you're gonna wind up with the lady you love. What? No, that's not how it works. Now we know that. That's not even how she's been trained. The way she's been trained and socialized is if you lose a fight in front of her, it doesn't matter if you were right in the fight. If you lose the fight, she's gone. And this has been going on really for a while. You can look at the original Scared Straight program. There was a blonde kid that they thought was smiling and smirking, but he actually had a nervous twitch. And he said, after that show aired, I lost my girlfriend because that show aired and they were berating me publicly. His girlfriend didn't stay and support him. She ditched him. That's been going on for a while. And so what I'm saying is that, see, we men now, as we get older, we have to understand these things. If a man loses his bag and the woman leaves, everybody's going to say, "You right, girl, go ahead and do it." If she gets big as a house, babies or not, and he bounces, he's a dog and a pig and everything. And we're not going to have that double standard in the Goldensphere. That ain't going to happen. Straight up. Some say, well, that's really shallow. Yeah, but it's shallow on both ends. We can be deep, we can be shallow, we can combine the two. All I'm saying is give and take. That's all I was trying to say. That's all I was really promoting when Exoticals United asked me the questions on the live stream. What I'm talking about is a give and take. You can have your standards, we can have ours. You can have your preferences, we can have ours. Because the two are different. Standards and preferences are different, but based on priority. But there's got to be a give and take. We can't be in the Goldensphere and we men now still feel like we got to do all of this to qualify ourselves for women that feel they're automatically qualified for us. And we can't afford to walk in feeling like they automatically qualify for us because we like the way they look. Excuse me? What does she have to do to impress you if you got to impress her? If it ain't going to be fair like that, bounce. Why would we stick around? You ladies will say that you got options, and you're right for saying it if you actually got the options. We got options with these other men of other races. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. That's a complicated recording for another time. But what I'm saying is that if you're right to say you got these options, and if we ain't ready to marry, you can take them, fair enough. But understand this, if we come in and we are still expected to do all of this impressing, and you ain't supposed to do nothing to impress us in exchange, then we also have options. We have black and golden options, even in the Americas, and even on the continent. You want them MLS? It's Cabo Verde, Sao Tome and Principe, Mauritius, Seychelles, some parts of Northern Africa, maybe Sudan, some parts of Ethiopia, if that's what you're looking for. You want them unmixed? Actually, a lot of the coast, maybe not even then, but you want them unmixed, there's the rest of the continent. You like them Spanish speaking? And that's what's more important to you? There's the Dominican Republic, if you count that as Spanish. I don't, it's too ghetto. There's Colombia, that's Spanish. They actually speak Spanish there, and it's pretty good. It's better than the Spanish they speak in Spain. So all I'm saying is we got options too. Both of us got options. Neither one of us is locked in with the other one. We're simply saying, look, if you're willing to be better than the other Western women that are out there from whom you come, we don't blame you for that. But we're saying that you know them. That's what it is. You know who we're talking about and what we're talking about. If you're willing to be better than them, yeah, sure. Absolutely. We're in the U.S. Not me, but, the other men are. You're in the U.S. Yeah, why not? If you're not willing to do so, well, you know what? We've already heard about SYSBM, passport breast. Why not? Depends on who likes us the most. That's always going to be important to men. Always. And it's going to be more important to men that are in the manosphere than it is to other men. If a man doesn't know any better, he's going to be concerned about can he just keep her from leaving. If a man has been through the manosphere, knows, and he's going to say, okay, can I not provoke her to leave, and am I her type? And usually, let's be honest, most women don't really like most men like that. And that's not necessarily wrong in and of itself. But women will say, well, that's not really true. But then they'll turn around and actually tell you, well, I myself don't like most of the guys I see. But I mean, there are a bunch of women. No. Do most of you like most men that you see? Because one thing we already know in the West. I understand you're going to tell me you're an exception and you have a chance to be improved at. I accept it. But we do understand, we have to understand, living in the West in general, I had to understand this until I left, is that most Western women do want the same few men. Most women may want something between 15 to 7% of the men they see. Visually speaking, that's what's attractive to them. And then there are other things that'll turn them off. But visually speaking, between 15 and 7% depends on which study you look at. Of men you see are visually attractive, but in the West, even if you're an exception, the training for Western women, period, including you, the message sent to you when you're young, the socialization aimed at you when you're young, is to compete for the same few men. And the winner is the one that gets this guy with all the options to shun the other options and commit to her. That's the winner. Excuse me. That's where the difference comes in. A woman in the Philippines may not like more than 15% of the men she sees. Guess what? Her 15% don't completely overlap with her friends either. She's allowed to pick as an individual. Same in Cambodia. Same thing in the Dominican Republic. Same thing in Colombia. Same thing in Somalia. Matter of fact, most women don't fantasize about light-skinned men in Somali culture. The single women, when they're fantasizing about a husband, they're not fantasizing about a light-skinned man, but they never make fun of another woman because she married a light-skinned man. Ask me how I know that. You see where I'm going? But that's not their fantasy. They'll tell you, if I have a choice, I'm going to choose the abundantly melanated brother. But there's no stigma for being with a light-skinned man. That's where the difference comes in. If I went to Malaysia, if I never knew my wife, or even if I just never thought for a second she was interested in me, and I wound up in Malaysia, and I told the mom there, you know what, I'm in the market for marriage, and I like this country, and I like its people. Why not here? Take my photograph, this is my biographical information, talk to some of the ladies that are this age and above, see who's interested. If I had said this, if one woman was not interested, fine. She would have not said anything about another one who was. And that is the difference. And what Carl and I were pretty much getting at, especially me, is that I was saying that when we men come up in the West, period, MLS or not, but especially us MLS men, we face this. Women that do have an interest still have to cover this. And this is what I was told back in 2001 by a lady colleague of mine. You don't have to be ugly. You're ambiguous. That's enough. You're no longer a prize because of that. Even for the women that like you, you're still not a prize to her friends. And therefore, if she's going to give you a shot, it's going to be in private. I hope this clears up all this misunderstanding and all this gender friction is beginning to start up because, frankly, neither Caesar nor LSP started this thing just for it to become a sisterhood. And I'm not against y'all having a sisterhood. What I'm against is turning the entire sphere into something they did not want. If either one of them, if Mr. Cannon or LSP, the Golden Artist, comes up tomorrow and says, you know what, Black, we hate you. How about you fuck the shuck up? Even if they said that, the fact remains that I still don't want somebody to come along and hijack this. I wouldn't have told the men to come along and turn this into a brotherhood because that's not what it started as. That wasn't its original goal and intention of its founders. And so I would say the same thing. Now, I'm not here for that. I would have said the same thing. It's not what I'm here for. It's not what you should be there for. This is, in fact, whether we want to admit it or not, this is, in fact, about what they said it was. Safety for you, the safety that you deserve. And even if our generation is not going to be able to see eye to eye between the genders, I am still in favor of the MLS men in the Goldensphere and the MLS women in the Goldensphere, those who are aware of it, defending each other mutually from outside false accusations and stereotypes. I'm still for that. But that's a mutual defense. If that's all we got, I'm still for it. But if what you're looking for is actually a community, then the men are going to have to matter. And as important as you think women are to men, you're going to have to learn to find men to be to you. Doesn't have to be the bum, but it's got to be men in general. There's another thing too. I'm going to point out one more example of this programming that you'll have to get rid of. Shout out to Multiracial Movement. She said on one of her live streams that when she decided, or when she said that she was not going to prioritize finances the same way other women did, that some of the women laughed at her. I don't know who these women were, but how effing dare you laugh at a woman for making her choice about her body? If it's her body, her choice, fuck the shuck up, she made it. You're just upset. Even if you're somebody that I like, I don't know who it is, I can't remember who she said did it. And that live stream's not up. So I can't go back and look. So what I'm saying has to be without bias. Whoever the hell you are, you're the first one to have that work to do psychologically. Because if you don't care nothing about the men that might benefit from her throwing away that priority and replacing it with something else. And notice, she still didn't say he can be a bum. She simply said, I got my money. So, as long as he ain't dipping into my money, I'm not going to prioritize it. He's pulling his own weight financially. I'm not prioritizing that. Got other things to worry about. If you are upset about that, then all you're really upset about is the difficulty she's no longer presenting to the men. That's it. And that is exactly what a gender war is. You get on somebody else because they're not difficult enough to somebody you don't even want. Excuse me? You were following the same programming of the group from whom you are defecting. Laughing at her because of that. It's her choice, right? She rightly called out some of the toxicity on the ladies' side. Matter of fact, even Exoticals United called some of that, if I'm not mistaken. She's like, no, I heard some toxicity there. Just, no, it's the bag. F how we look, you bring the bag. The men know that they can't sit up and say, you bring the looks and we don't bring the bag. And as a matter of fact, just because of the way that economies are, this is a basic economics lesson. Because of the way that economies are, based on rare resources, otherwise they're not valuable enough to be the basis of wealth, men have more of a right to demand your beauty than you do to demand their wealth. Not that they bring something to the table, that they be earners, but to demand an actual bag. Wealth, we have more right to demand your looks and your bodies than you do to demand a high minimum of wealth from us. But we still respect your right to your preference. We know we have to. What Multiracial Movement said is more in line with what an economist would tell you. There just ain't enough for every woman to have a wealthy man, because then the men wouldn't be wealthy anyway. What you're really upset about is the difficulty she's not presenting. Go ahead and say it, because if that's the case, now I've made you aware of it. Maybe you weren't aware of it at first, but now I've made you aware of it. If that's what it is, and you say, you know what, I'm not changing, you're at war. End of. You're going to drag it into the Goldensphere and mess up any chance at a community. Now that I've made you aware of it, if you say, you know what, that was kind of one-sided, and I stepped on her toes just because some guy might win, and I need to stop that. If you can come to that level of maturity, then you're not at war with us. You see how easy that was to figure it out? It doesn't make a difference to me what her priorities are. I'm not going to live in the U.S. again, and I'm happily married over here. Not giving her up for anything. My wife's great. She'd have to come in and tell me one day, get the F out, I don't like you no more. Otherwise, I'm stuck on her. I don't mind saying that because she's been great actually, and she's deserved it. But I want you all to understand. I want y'all to keep in mind that she still has that right to make that determination for herself. And she does increase her chances. of finding someone, because men can, it's easier to not be a bum than it is to be a baller. It's easy for a man to not be a bum, but for a man to be a baller is going to take not only work, it's also going to take skill and good luck. If he's missing any of them three, he ain't gonna make it. And most of us ain't missing the luck, because the resources that one must have to be a baller in abundance, the resources one must have in abundance to be a baller, are naturally too rare anyway. That's why they're resources. If gold was as abundant as dirt on this planet, then what would gold be? Dirt. You see where I'm going with this? So what she said is more in line with what any economics professor would tell you, with the way that God made the planet. You understand? That's just one example. But y'all got work to do. Now, we men, we know you got it to do. We know we've had to do this work. It's just that by the time we get, really by the time we're 22, we already know there's that work. And most of us are in that process of not only trying to financially get ourselves fit, but physically and psychologically. Matter of fact, we waste a lot of time working on things we don't really need to improve, because we don't know any better. So when we start saying, well, look, we need to walk you through the deprogramming of this particular idea you have, but we don't let you tell us per se, it's not because we're being one-sided, it's because we've already done the work we had to. We're not the ones that are difficult. Remember, the one thing that we men have to take responsibility for is being too easy. Also, a lot of the ideas we have about the Wicked Witch of the West in general are not based on just us being bitter. It's based on confessions. And that's another topic for another day. I hope that what I said helps. Thanks again, Mr. Cannon. Thank you, Multiracial Movement. There are plenty others I want to thank, but right now I wanted to thank you two specifically. Sorry I couldn't keep this underneath the time. I couldn't keep it down to 10 minutes, but wasn't anything I could do if I'm going to do justice to this topic, because I know it's sensitive, and if it was 10 minutes long, everybody I was trying to help would have just said, oh, here you go with that toxicity again, that chauvinism. I'm sure we'll talk more about this later. In the meantime, thanks for listening. I don't have time to do the outro. I got to start class, so until next time.